Support for the Dice Tower comes from listeners like you and from the Op, also known as USAopoly. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 692.
The best of 2016, 5 years ago.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Geoff has some more gambling tips. We answer questions from the mailbag and try to drum up submissions for Tales of Horror. Then it's time to crank up the Wayback Machine once again as we revisit our top 10 games from 2016. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Michael to my Cheaty. It's Tom Vassell.
I'm sorry, what?
Michael to my Cheaty.
I don't remember anything.
The Good Place?
I believe my memory was wiped.
Ha! Good. Good, you had me going there for a second.
Yeah, I'm a fan of, I should say, at this point, I am so happy that we have moved into serial television. Even though television is a incorrect word to use at this point in time. Although technically The Good Place was on television, I suppose.
It was indeed. But video entertainment?
I'm excited. Like this week, they're starting WandaVision on Disney+.
Oh, that's this week, isn't it?
It is, and I plan to make that a weekly watch with my family. I mean, I'm hoping it works for the family. You know, it looks like they just from the trailer I saw, like they may not get a lot of the references to old television.
That's true, but I'm excited. And it's got theme songs and stuff from the Lopez's, Anderson Lopez family.
I know I should probably know that, but I don't know what that means.
They did a little small budget film called Frozen.
Again, remember that memory wipe thing?
Oh, right. Yeah, they went too far.
Yeah, I had to let it go.
So
anyway, folks, welcome to the show where we talk about board games. I'm Tom Vassell.
Hi there, I'm Eric Summerer. In a week of milestones for both you and me.
Well, let's start with yours. What's your milestone?
I will, as of the week that this posts, I will have a teenager at the end of the week.
You know, that's good and bad.
Well, so I've heard, yes.
Yeah, but people make it sound worse than it is. And yes, they will ignore you and look down upon you and sarcastically mock you. But the conversations improve. They really do.
That's true. He is a better conversationalist than he used to be.
Well, it's not that they're better conversationalists. It's just that the topics they want to talk about are slightly more interesting.
You mean it's not going to be Minecraft every single day?
That may last for a while. Minecraft. Cool. Well, there you go. Well, I have married off a child. So the Vassell household is now down to 8. And since Amy's at college, 7.
All right.
Holly was not here today, and we had 4 kids, and I was like, this is nothing. 4 kids, so easy. I don't even count them anymore.
There you go. Yeah.
We used to count off in the car. I'm not saying anyone ever got left at church or something. It's just a precautionary method.
Like your own little Home Alone situation.
Well, unlike Home Alone, which we just watched with the family, I would have realized that boy wasn't on the plane a lot sooner. And
yes.
She didn't even have that many kids. She had this extended family, but that lady only had 4 kids at most, maybe 3. I don't remember.
I have no idea how many were actually hers.
Buzz and the sister.
And the sister and Kevin. So 3? Is there an older brother? I don't know.
So that's your responsibility. You don't need to count all the other people in the family.
Right.
Anyway. We're nitpicking at 90s movies. We're talking about 2016 today. You got to save this for when we do the best of 15 years ago.
Okay, I'll save it. We'll table this Home Alone discussion.
Well, folks, if you're listening to this when this podcast releases, it's January 12th, 2021. That's 11221. Or if you're in Europe, it's 120121.
Okay.
Doesn't have quite the same ring to it.
Not quite the same. It's not quite as musical.
Yeah. Well, either way, it's January. So, of course, many different things happen in Januaries of each year, like the doldrums. I found out Well, no, I can't give that piece of statistical information out. Melody asked me to make a game show for the wedding just in case things got boring. It did not get boring, so I've saved those questions for a future thing. Anyway,
you
folks,
can't let all that research go to waste.
I researched weddings quite a bit, actually. So
Uh-huh.
I know more than I needed to know, but including like the longest bridal veil could scale Mount Everest, and I was thinking the only reason you did that was for a world record at that point, right? You know,
What? How could you even walk?
I don't know how they can walk with one that's like a few feet long. It seems like it'd be tripping. The lady
You can only
from
go in one direction.
the superhero cartoon Incredibles would have issues with bridal veils, I'm imagining.
Yes, Edna Mode.
That's right.
We
okay,
keep
folks,
getting off track. This is a board game podcast.
This is a very rabbit traily one. Well, that's it, folks. Every January we run a Kickstarter crowdfunder for the Dice Tower, and this year is no different. The Dice Tower's main source of income is from listeners like you. If you're a fan of Dice Tower and you like what we've done both on our audio show and our video show that we put out over 2020, and you like that and would like to see that continue to 2021, then we ask you to consider donating to us. Now, our content is and always will remain free, but if you are interested in backing us, you can check it out at dicetowerkickstarter.com. And what we do is you can donate there, and then we'll send out gifts to you. Now, we plan to send them out sooner than we sent them out in 2020.
Fingers crossed.
We did not anticipate the arrival of COVID in 2020, but all the stuff is in the mail from that Kickstarter. And even if you don't, and I actually would ask you to consider possibly to donate maybe with no reward, or to pick a reward and donate above and beyond that, because that helps us more. I have multiple full-time employees on the video staff, part-time employees on the podcasting staff, and others. We publish around, I want to say it was 1,500 videos a year, I believe. And I looked last year, and we put out just a few more videos in 2020 and 2019. That's not our goal at this point, to put out more videos, but our goal is or even more podcasts, but it's to consistently improve. This year we improved across the board microphone-wise. Eric initiated that endeavor, and so we also popped up the quality of Mandy and Suzanne's mics. And I want to also work on our show and just make our show better and bigger and more interesting, I guess. Always trying to think of ways to do that. And on our video side of things, just improving the quality as much as we possibly can. We're still in the middle of a website overhaul, and we're just trying to make things better across the board. So if you can, I ask you to consider that. I don't want to keep harping on it, although I'll mention it in our next podcast also. But if you want to know more information about it, check it out at dicetowerkickstarter.com.
Cool.
Now, one of the things that we have phased out, in fact, I'm not even sure when the last time we did this was. Do you remember?
I don't. It's been, to do a proper tale, especially Tales of Horror, which started the whole thing, we haven't done a proper Tales of Horror in some time. Part of it is that these have been contributed by listeners. The Tales of Horror is a series of fantastical tales, true stories as far as we know, but instances where something very out of the ordinary has happened, and a particularly horrific, quote unquote, event has occurred, and we would read them on the air and then discuss what happened and just be flabbergasted by the whole thing. But these are submitted by listeners, and sort of the stories petered out a little bit. We just weren't getting the submissions that we wanted to keep the segment going, and it just sort of faded away. And we did branch out with tales of amazement, so like amazing things that happened, an event that happened in a circumstance of a game, and we spread out other tales as well. But horror has always been my favorite. But at this point, I don't even remember what the voice sounds like.
Actually,
gather around, children. No, that's not it.
I just looked it up.
Gather around, children. No,
it looks like the last one we did was episode 589 in January 2019.
Wow.
It doesn't feel like we've not done them that long, has it?
It's been
But it's
over 100 episodes since we've done a Tales of Horror.
well, that's what I got. That's what it looks like here.
Wow.
At least horror. We might have done something else. I did a keyword search for that. But well, the reason I thought of this was because I was introduced to one that happened to a friend of mine. So I'm gonna give him a fake name like Kenny. All right. So
Okay.
Magic the Gathering sells cards, as you know, in booster packs and decks and things.
Yep.
But they also have this thing that I just found out about last year called Secret Lair. Have you heard about this?
No.
I guess on their website they're like, it's their best worst kept secret. Like, okay, is it a secret or not? But anyway, what they do with Secret Lair is they will do artwork or new cards, funky cards that are a one-time print run. Like right now, what are they doing now? They just did Bob Ross, for example. Like Bob Ross lands
in Magic. Oh, Bob Ross Land. I think I heard about that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
I thought Bob Ross was a creature.
No, maybe they are doing Bob Ross. I don't know. But they pick different art. Yeah, it's called Happy Little Gathering. Oh, no, never mind. It is over. But for $30, you get 10 cards.
Wow.
Now, to be fair, we have such things in on our Kickstarter backer sometimes. But this is not to donate to Wizard of the Coast to keep running. That's just how much these cost. And that's the regular edition. I think foil's $40. You get the same ones in foil. But they do a single print run of these. And then you buy them and you keep them. You can use them, I guess. I think sometimes they're black bordered, sometimes they're not. The black border means you can use them in a deck or not. Like these Happy Little Gathering cards were actually, parts of his paintings to use for land and mountains and swamps, etc.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of a cool thing. I like that concept. You can use them. There was Godzilla, and if you don't like that, if you feel like it disrupts the aesthetics of the set, you don't have to use them. And these cards can often greatly increase in value. I mean,
all right.
I believe the Godzilla ones go for quite a bit on eBay. Because Godzilla's popular and it's a Magic the Gathering card.
Yep.
So I'm looking at them here. Yeah, okay. So here you can buy the set for $60. So it's gone up 3 times value. They don't always go up in value, but the fact is they're never going to print them again, or at least in that format.
Gotcha.
So my friend Kenny buys these sometimes for like, hey, we can increase these in value. Well, Kenny often works for he works for a video publishing house. So since he's there often and his packages come to him, he doesn't want that to happen so they don't get stolen. So he has them sent to his mother.
Okay.
His mother has a phobia of things in boxes.
Wait, what?
She doesn't like things in boxes. She wants them unboxed.
Ah, okay.
Okay, I can understand that a bit. I don't like, I like to see things unboxed if possible. So the latest set of these Magic cards showed up in the box, and so she unboxed them. Inside there were some smaller boxes with these in them. On these smaller boxes, in huge print, it says, "Do not open." That you don't open it if you're going to keep them and shrink and all that stuff.
Right. Okay.
However, that was just another box, actually. So those were opened, but they were not opened carefully. And the cards also got bent and I believe ripped in one case.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, indeed. Now, my friend is fairly unflappable, which is good because the video production company he works at tends to make jokes at each other's expense all the time.
Uh-huh.
But in this particular case, he was flapped, I guess.
Flapped. Yeah.
He showed me the pictures of the ripped into boxes, and I just had to laugh because it says clearly on them, "Do not open," as they are ripped open.
Wow.
So, now, of course, being the kind-hearted friend I am, well, I laughed.
Well, yes.
But I also commiserated because I get it, right? That's like a horrific thing to have happen to you. It's like your mother selling all your baseball cards collection when you went to college to somebody else, and now they're worth more. And if you had kept them, all right, I'm digressing.
You could
but
retire.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So anyway, as I saw this, I thought I would like to hear Tales of Horror again because that felt like a tale of horror to me. So Tales of Horror could be anything. So in a minute, now, that does not mean we will air them all. Sometimes we don't feel like they're horrific enough.
And please don't make them up. This has to be something that's actually happened to you or someone you know.
And it has to be somewhat extreme. Don't give me sometimes we get ones where someone says, we played a game of, Settlers of Catan and it took 2 hours instead of 1. No, if it takes 10 hours, tell us about it, Oh, you're practicing the laugh?
That was the 2-hour laugh.
Nah, the 2-hour laugh is, that's kind of like it's not bad enough to be a tale of horror at that point, but bad enough to be annoying. Alrighty, well, let's jump from that now. Let's talk about some games we played. Eric, have you deduced any games lately?
I have indeed, although I wanted to play a game with my kids and they were just not having it. So I searched for a game that could be played solo.
This is your theme all the time.
I know. And came up with The Search for Planet X. This is a game from Renegade Games and Foxtrot, that design studio. It's designed by, I've actually got the box in front of me, Ben Rossett and Matthew O'Malley. The Search for Planet X is a deduction game. It was, in fact, one of the top games from, I think, both Mandy and Suzanne. I know Suzanne had it on her list. I think that's right. I might be totally wrong. I'd have to go back and look at their lists. But they both recommended it. It is a deduction game where you are, I know it was on Mandy's list, you're trying to find Planet X, as you might have guessed from the name, and you're presented with an arc, a full circle of the night sky. And not only is Planet X out there somewhere, but also a certain number of comets, a certain number of dwarf planets. There's some asteroids out there. And each of these celestial bodies has rules for how they interact with the other things. So like Planet X can't be next to one of the dwarf planets. There's a basic mode and an advanced mode with, basic mode has, I think, 12 sectors of the sky. Advanced mode has 18 sectors of the sky, so it's a more difficult search. And so asteroids are in either pairs or a cluster of 4. The comets are only in specific points in the sky. The Planet X can appear empty if you search in certain ways, but it's actually there, sort of hiding. But it also doesn't appear next to dwarf planets, all sorts of logical rules like this. And so you will spend your turn doing search actions to find out more information about the logical rules that govern the assortment, all of these things. You will search specific sectors and find out what is in that one sector, or you can do a wider search for a specific type of object. So I could search in 5 sectors for asteroids, and it will tell me how many asteroids are in those 5 sectors. You can only search in the one arc that is, I guess, in the night sky. You have this rotating disk that spins around as turns go by, and that governs what you can look at because you can't observe what's on the other side of the planet. That's kind of cool. And this is all done with an app. You have a particular seed of the game, a code that multiple people can access. So I could start a game and then Tom can say, all right, what's the 4-digit code? And so now we're both playing the same game, but we can use our single devices, which is kind of cool.
I didn't even think about the fact that this would make this playable over Zoom.
It very much could.
Interesting.
It probably helps to have your own set, but it wouldn't
sure,
necessarily...
I meant that, but you and I could play it together.
We could. Yeah.
Huh.
And these actions have a time cost. So the more specific those actions are, searching for asteroids in only 2 or 3 sectors is more expensive than searching in a wider arc. And you move around a time track, much like Glenmore or Nova Luna, where whoever is farthest back on the track gets to take the next turn. So if you take the little cheapo actions, you might get more than one turn in a row, but very helpful specific actions will jump you ahead on the track quite a bit. And you will follow these logical rules to try and determine where Planet X is and where other objects in the sky are, because in order to finish the game, you have to find out where X is, but also what is in the 2 sectors next to it. So it's not just finding, you can't just guess and get lucky. You need to know enough about the sky that it's sort of a satisfying experience. You can also periodically, around the board, as this disc rotates, you will come up with theories where you put a little token out that says, I think the comet is in Sector 4. And those things sort of march toward the center of the board, and when they reach the end, you will then determine whether that's correct, and if other people are also correct in determining the same thing, which is worth points at the end of the game. And once X has been determined, then you will total up points, and you get lots. If you discover X, if you were right, then you're going to get points there. If you made a bunch of correct theories, you're going to get points there. The way this is done as a solo game is that the app plays a bot character, which seems relatively seamless. It will take its turn, much like any other player would, and it will also make theories. And the system works pretty well as far as you racing against this digital player as it forms theories and tries to determine the same things you're trying to determine. I liked it. I think it's a cool logical puzzle. It's well produced. The app seems to work well. I do need to get it to my kids because I think they'll like it too. The fact that you can adjust the difficulty level is cool. You can start out with a certain number of clues to begin with, and you can do that differently for the other players. So when I do play with the kids, I'll play with maybe only 4 clues, and they'll get 8 clues to start, or I get 0, and then the 13-year-old gets 4, and the 9-year-old gets 8. That might work too. I like it. The Search for Planet X, a lovely logical puzzle.
So I said to my kids, hey, do you want to play Taxi Derby? And they said, huzzah, let's play it. So we played a game called Taxi Derby. This is from Skip Shot Games, and I think this game is, at least the thought of it was from the old PlayStation game, or, you know, that old taxi delivery game. What was that called? Crazy Taxi? What was that called?
Oh, yeah, Crazy Taxi. Yeah.
Yeah. And this has that same thing. And this one, you are just driving a taxi around each turn. And one of the cool features of this game is you can move your taxi kind of as far as you want. You can like zoom it all the way across the board. But there's a police car on the board, and that police car will move equal to a black 4-sided die, 1 through 4, that you roll that is multiplied by the number of spaces you go over 4. So you can go 4 safely. But if Eric goes 5, that police car is going to be moving 1 to 4 spaces towards him.
Okay.
If he goes 6, it's going to be moving 2 to 8. 7, so if I could move 12 spaces, but then the police car is going to go 8 to 32 spaces. And he may not catch me on 8, but he's probably going to catch me on
32. Yeah. Right.
32. That's kind of it. So it's a fun little push your luck thing. And the game forces you to do that because you get to take one action, which is usually picking a passenger up, dropping a passenger, or getting an upgrade. There's different upgrades you can get to make your taxi faster, and some upgrades you need to pick up different types of passengers. But so as you can only take one action, but if you go more than 4 spaces, you may take 2 actions. So it behooves you to go faster. And then you pick where the taxi driver where the police officer moves. So, no, he'll chase you on your turn. But sometimes I'll make him just drive away from me no matter where. It's an interesting game. It's fun. It's colorful. It's simple. If the police officer does catch you, you get a ticket. And there's a deck of ticket cards. And there's a couple cards in there that say you get off with a warning. And there's also other cards that cause you to pay fines, or you can get thrown in jail, which means any passenger you are carrying, leaves. And also you basically lose a turn, essentially. So you got to be really cautious about that. The passengers themselves are all manner. There's ordinary people, but there's a lot of mobsters and spies there too. And there's bonus points at the end of the game for delivering the most of different types. So it's not a very deep, thinky game per se, but it's one that we really had a lot of fun playing. It's just fun to go around and pick up these passengers. Some passengers were pretty tricky to pick up. You need a certain number of upgrades to get them. And then trying to figure out which upgrades to get, that's a lot of fun too. So it's, I thought, a nicely developed game. I believe it's a Kickstarter. It's definitely, I think this company, it's Skip Shot Games. I think it's their only game. So yeah, I like it a lot. That's Taxi Derby.
Cool. A game that my kids did want to play with me and pulled out on New Year's is Icecool, which until this moment I had not played. Once upon a time, my kids played it at a convention and loved it and insisted that I get them a copy. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. They, usually if they're asking to play a game, I'm excited. But then I never played it myself. They have played it by themselves with friends, brought it to school. But I never actually got it to the table. And so we finally got to play Icecool, which is a dexterity game where you're playing a penguin who is in high school and is trying to sneak out to wander the halls. And so every round of the game, one player is going to play the teacher, the hall monitor, and the others are playing students, and they all sort of flee out of the classroom, and they're trying to go through certain doors in this school. The board is made out of tiered boxes. The whole box sort of unfolds and pieces together into multiple rooms that are boxes with holes in them that represent the doors that you're going through. And you're flicking these little penguins. They're weebles, basically. They weeble and they wobble, but they don't fall down. And you're flicking them around and trying to get through the doors. But the hall monitor is trying to catch by running into the students before they go through all three of the doors that they're trying to get through in a round. Now, there's a scoring aspect to this where officially, now I have to get the rule right because my son had played this at a convention and learned a bunch of people's house rules. And so he explained the game, and it sort of made sense, and we went through the way that he thought to play it, and I'm starting to question whether this is the way it's supposed to go, and started reading the rules and discovering that the rules are different than what he was explaining to me. Officially, you if you are the player that's catching the other players, the hall monitor, you can get one little point card because you still have your ID card in front of you. If the hall monitor touches one of the students, they get their hall pass, and that means that player doesn't get a point card that turn. And then you score points. The cards have like 1 to 3 fish on them, and they will be worth fish at the end of the game. You play a certain number of rounds, like 1 per player if you are playing the hall monitor, or 2 hall monitor rounds per player, and then score up points at the end of the game. We ended up with a lot more cards floating around because we had messed up the rules. But it was still a lovely dexterity challenge. And trying to get trick shots. They say you can get the penguins to jump the walls, but I could never get that to work.
I can do it.
Well, I'm sure you can.
You got to practice, Eric. I'm an expert at jumping walls. I can't get them to go where I want. And I also almost broke a fingernail doing it on the giant set.
I have heard that it's quite dangerous. That's the other thing. My youngest sort of gave up at one point because he said his finger hurt too much. And he was in the lead, so we were faced with a difficult decision for what we were going to do for the end of the game. Finally coaxed him back to sort of finish. But it is, if you flick these things wrong, it can hurt. You have to be a little careful doing so. We still enjoyed it, and I'm glad I finally got a chance to play Icecool.
Yeah, great game. Alrighty, my last game I want to talk about is Hallertau. Have you heard of this?
No.
I'm not 100% I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Oh,
Hallertau is the newest big box Uwe Rosenberg game from Lookout Games.
Okay.
You will never believe what the theme is.
Is it farming?
It is. Actually, it's hop producing. And there's only one animal in this one, but you could probably guess what kind of animal it is.
Is it a cow?
No, it's a sheep. Come on, it's Rosenberg.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is a worker placement game in which you are building up your own farm and getting different resources. And I'm not going to go into all the different details here in the game because there's a lot going on to it, but suffice it to say, and I don't mean this as a negative, but people will take it as one. But if you played his other games, this will not be unfamiliar to you at all.
Okay.
Because he is repeating himself in some ways. So in this one...
Iterating is the word.
Iterating. Okay, fine. In this one, you place workers out, and you get a certain amount of workers each turn, and they're just cubes. And you put them on the board in different spaces, and each space has a spot for 1 worker, a spot for 2 workers, a spot for 3 workers. So each space can be used 3 times, but it's progressively more expensive. And in each round of the game, the top row comes off. So if all 3 spots are used up, the next time, someone's going to have to put 3 workers to use that spot again. Most of the spots give you various resources. You are keeping track of, there's wheat, hops, barley, leather, meat, milk, bricks. There's a couple other ones too. Okay, there's a bunch of resources. Oh, and there's sheep.
Okay.
Sheep, though, are different in this game. When you get these sheep, they come, if you get sheep in the first 3 rounds of the game, they're going to die in rounds 4, 5, or 6. Unless you mitigate that somehow. Okay. So in this game, sheep have a shelf life or a farm life or whatever the thing is. You are getting all these different resources because you want to advance buildings. So you have these 5 buildings and you will advance them on this track that you have. But to advance them on a track, you need to pay a certain number of resources. Each building needs different types of resources. And the resources are usually equal to the number of the round. So in round 6, it's more expensive to move them. And it has, in my opinion, a bit of a clunky system of rocks that you need to use tools to move these rocks so you can move them farther per turn. And I get why this mechanism exists from a game perspective. It makes absolutely no sense to me thematically, but whatever. The reason you want to move these buildings across is because that's your main way of scoring points. And if once you move every building once, then you get more workers for the next turn. So the more evenly you move them, that's good for you. You got it. That's what you're doing. That's the whole point of the game, is getting these resources. You also have fields in which you can plant crops, and these crops will produce and get more resources. You may have seen that in other games like Caverna and Agricola. So there's a lot of stuff I've seen here before. There's some neat aspects to it. When you have fields, these fields are in front of you, and these fields are in these rows, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So when you plant a crop, you put it in that particular field. When that field produces resources, you take the crop off the field, and you just move it over on the side of the board where you have a track where you keep track of all your resources you have. So if I have hops, for example, on my 4 field, I move it over, and I have 4 hops now. And every time a field produces something, it moves down 1 row. So next time I use that field, it will only give me 3. But if I don't use a field, it moves up 1. So your fields can produce more the longer you don't use them. Now, this is combined with a bunch of cards because why not? This is Rosenberg. There's different cards that have different goals that if you accomplish them, you can get resources, you can get goods that you get every turn, and end game scoring points. There's really nothing here that feels dreadfully new. Maybe the way that those fields produce. Although I will say that also can feel a little fiddly sometimes.
Okay, it's a lot of upkeep.
Yeah, and man, I cannot take Rosenberg's other games out of my head. If I could, this would get a really high rating. And you say that's not, then that's what I should give it. But I don't know, because those other games do exist. I don't feel it's as good as Caverna or Feast for Odin or Le Havre. Those are probably my 3 favorites. Although it's not really like those games, except it's a little bit like Caverna. It actually feels, it reminds me more of Fields of Arle than anything else.
Okay.
I'm going to play it some more and see where it ends up at, because I do like the game. I like moving resources around. I like, worker placement. I like getting resources and turning them in and planting fields and seeing sheep live and die. And in this game, sheep produce milk. I'm not sure why.
Sure.
Why do they produce milk?
Sheep's milk cheese?
Maybe you're selling them for milk? I don't know. Anyhow, it's an interesting game, and I think Uwe Rosenberg fans are going to like it a lot. I don't know where it will end up in how much people like it. It's already ranked 2055 at Board Game Geek, and it's not even out to that many people.
Okay.
But so I think it's going to do well. And if you like his other games, I feel confident saying you'll like this one. There's a few minor fiddly pieces I didn't enjoy in the game, and I did feel that sometimes when you draw a card, there's a little bit of luck in drawing those cards as the game progresses, because I'll say, I'll draw a card. This one says I need to have 6 fields. I decided to get rid of my fields for other things. Well, that card's worthless to me. Although at the beginning of the game, cards like that can help dictate what you should do with your strategy.
Okay.
So, Hallertau, that's a very mixed review. That's ultimately saying the game is good. And we'll just have to see where time takes us with the rest of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a lot of stuff going on. Don't forget, we're still running a Kickstarter since you've began listening to the episode. But I guess we should move on to the lottery.
We should. We should get some good gambling tips from Geoff.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's time for Game Tech with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
As some of you undoubtedly know, I am a bit insufferable. Well, perhaps some is a little conservative. Probably most of you know that. Now, this is particularly true when I get involved in conversations about gambling and luck. Now, I once got into a rabbit hole of a conversation with a good friend of mine as we walked through a casino, and he offered to show me his unbeatable strategy for roulette. Or, staying with roulette, when I walk through a casino and am amazed at the displays they have at each wheel showing the last 20 or so numbers spun, distribution of color, odd, even, every statistic you could want. And if you were with me, I would be delighted to talk your ear off about how it is completely pointless. A random number is a random number. Just because the last 3 numbers were black does not mean that you are more or less likely to get red on the next spin. And I apologize in advance if you and I are together at the blackjack table and another player complains that someone should not have taken a hit when they did and that messed up the deck for everybody else. I have actually gotten into arguments with people over this at the blackjack table over this completely ridiculous statement. A random card draw is a random card draw. Now, casinos go to great pains to make their random number generation as random as possible. The manufacturing process that is used for dice for craps, for example, is incredibly sophisticated. If you're at all interested, I did a game tech on that years ago, which you can still find on the Ludology site. Now, one conversation that for some reason I find myself frequently having is about the lottery. Whenever the Mega Millions jackpots start to climb, people ask me for my tips about lottery strategy. Now, in these situations, my main lottery tip is not to play. On average, you will lose about 50 cents for every dollar you put into it. However, if you feel you must, there is one strategic consideration for the big mega ball style lotteries. If you win, you want to maximize your gain. So ideally, you want to play a set of numbers that only you have picked. If you're the only winner, you get the entire jackpot. You do not have to split it with anyone. Now, the example I always give of a potential pick that may do this when I have this discussion is that you should play 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. And I often get the same disgusted look in response. That would never happen. Why would you play that? Okay, a few things about that. First off, I think this highlights how incredibly unlikely it is that you will win the lottery. It is just as unlikely for a consecutive sequence to happen, that 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, as it is for what people think looks like a random sequence. And I'm doing looks like in air quotes right now. For example, the last set of winning numbers in Mega Millions was 1, 19, 31, 35, 48, 62. Maybe that feels more random than what I said, but that doesn't mean it is any more likely to come up. It also shows how people are notoriously bad at creating random numbers out of their heads. We tend to think that odd numbers are more random, for example. There have been a lot of studies that show how bad people actually are, and magicians and mentalists use this predilection all the time as part of their tricks. Okay, so now let's talk about why I'm bringing this up. In early December, the winning lottery numbers in South Africa were, wait for it, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Cool, right? This made worldwide headlines because it seems like such an unbelievable coincidence. So, my theory that picking consecutive numbers would make you the only winner, how did that hold up? Well, there were actually 20 winners, way more than the average lottery in South Africa, where there are usually only 2 or 3. So, at first glance, my theory did not hold up that well. However, this drawing has launched a fraud investigation into the South African Lottery Bureau, which apparently has had some shady dealings in the past. However, I am skeptical that this was rigged. I mean, if you're going to rig the lottery draw, why pick 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Yeah, it's easier for everyone involved and your cronies to remember, but it just seems like it would draw needless attention. But we'll see what happens. So, while my principle of trying to select unusual sequences I still believe is sound, perhaps the consecutive digit theory is not so valid. Now, unfortunately, while the lottery commissions must have data on which number sequences have been selected, I have been unable to find it anywhere online. So, we're still kind of stuck looking for a strategy. However, I would recommend against this advice that was recently posted to Reader's Digest. Instead of picking a meaningful date like a birthday or anniversary, it's a no-brainer to select the most common lottery numbers to boost your odds. And yes, there is a way to find out lucky lottery numbers. There are a few websites that track the lottery numbers that are pulled the most. Keeping track of them is a good method for how to pick your numbers. So, to emphasize, this is not a good method for picking lottery numbers. Numbers aren't lucky or due to be picked. Random is random. This is the insufferable Geoff Engelstein with Game Tech.
Questions.
All right, our first question is from Mathau, and he has two. His first question is, what is the ugliest game you love the most and the most beautiful game you hate it the most?
Well, I know if...
Except he used the word children. No. Sorry.
If you were answering for me, I think you would say Bus is the ugliest game. With it's an interesting art design. Maybe Ada Ants. Oh no. How about Magical Athlete?
Oh, that was my answer, Eric, you jerk.
Oh boy. So by just answering many things, then I'm going to cover it. The other
Magical Athlete for me. I don't know who designed that game. It is garbage.
It's really graphically not good. Beautiful that I hated the most though. That's a tougher one. I kept thinking of like really big minis games or oh man, but I haven't played many like giant Kickstarters that just didn't work for me. Boy, I don't know if I have an answer. You go. I don't have an answer for the beautiful that I hated.
I don't think I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
You can't make me. No, there's a lot of pretty games that I don't like. I don't know if there's like the most beautiful game I dislike. I'll tell you what though. Here's an example of a game that's pretty but functionally difficult. This game came out in what year was it? The game is Sienna, by the way. Came out in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
So 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Sienna has a big board that is a picture from the artist.
Yep.
Ambrosio Lorenzetti painted a fresco of the town of Siena and its surroundings.
Yep.
So this game, you play on this painting.
Yep.
Actually, I don't think the painting's that pretty either, but okay,
Yep.
It's art. There's like almost no information on the board as to what happens when you place pieces on this board. You put them on a painting and you just have to know what that means.
Yes.
So it's really not that great of a game. It's definitely a game they put form over function for sure.
I mean, I liked the mechanics of the game. I think mechanically it was a pretty cool game, but you're right. There's no indication of where there's like a border around the outside of the board. But so then you end up playing basically by putting your pieces outside the board on those spaces that actually say what the spaces are, but they're supposed to reference sections of the painting, but they're not all the same size, and it is very strange. You're right. That's a weird one.
Yeah. Well, that would be what I'd say, but again, I don't know that I even hate the game. That just made me think of that. Matthew, second question is, how many times do you play a game before saying it's garbage? You could be that one guy stuck in a corner and 4 players of Settler Catan, where basically he's saying, in Catan, sometimes a really bad setup can mess it up for you, but It's still a good game. Knowing how impactful your reviews are, do you feel you need to play a bad game more often to make sure it's really a bad game?
I know I've said that if I really get a bad impression, and part of that is because of the way I performed in the game, I will try and confirm that before I really go off on the game. But as I know you've said before, Tom, occasionally it's just so bad you don't want to subject yourself to that again. And I've certainly run into situations where I look at the rest of the table and we're like, we don't have to finish this if this is not working for us. And then I'm probably not going to play it again. So once or twice.
I think if a game is a game in which you get a raw deal, like you mentioned a Catan, getting stuck in the corner, you usually can tell that.
Yes.
And usually the other players aren't saying it's a bad game. But if everyone thinks it's bad, there are a few games I can tell they're bad by reading the rules. But I still say you never know.
Right.
And sometimes I'm wrong. It is a good game, but usually I'm not. But I'll tell you what, there are some games where I'm going over the rules going, what am I missing? All right, we'll start the game up. And the whole time we're playing, I'm frantically flipping through rules saying, I've got to have missed something. There's fun here on a page. And you know what? Occasionally, I have missed a major rule that makes a game fun. Yep. And I'll go back and go, oh, here it is. We got it. But after cleanly going over the game and realizing it's not fun, I only need to play it enough to that point. And it could be a game. Sometimes maybe less than that. That's very rare, but sometimes. For example, let's take one of the worst games in existence, LCR. I know LCR is a bad game from you telling me the rules to it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting any rules wrong in LCR, which is basically you roll dice and then everyone passes a chip in the direction of the dice rolled, which is left, center, or right. You get rid of all your chips, you win. There's no strategy, no decisions. I think it's very easy for me to say that game is bad, even if I had never played the game.
Yes.
No, I don't do that. I would play the game. But I wouldn't have to say, I think we should play this some more, Eric.
I only needed to play Bunko once to decide I didn't.
So, there's that. But I'll tell you how many times you need to play a game to say it's a bad game when its fans don't like your opinion of it. And the answer to that is infinity.
More than you did.
More than you did. That's right. That's the correct answer. I'll be like, I played it 5 times. Well, the true doesn't show it till the 10th play.
Yep.
Although I call Balderdash on that. If a game takes that many plays to be good, it's not.
Did you just say Balderdash is bad? What?
No, I used the word Balderdash in its proper.
Right.
I think.
No, you did. You did. I totally derailed you.
Man, that's a theme for this episode.
Let's move on. Eric writes to say trends come and go, and I think there is a slight hint that the current trend for Kickstarters is miniatures, but trends tend to flatten out and then shrink down or go away. So my question is, do you think we have reached the flatten stage of miniatures on Kickstarter, or is the amount of miniatures still going up? Do you think the rising cost of shipping all around the world will influence this, or do most people not think about shipping costs when buying a Kickstarter game?
Well, I keep a real close eye on Kickstarters now. I don't know if there's more Kickstarter games in essence of percentage-wise. There's definitely more Kickstarter miniature games, but there's also more Kickstarter games.
Yeah.
Right. So taking that out of the equation, I don't know. There's still quite... I see people complain everything on Kickstarter is miniatures. There's tons of games that don't have miniatures.
Right.
In fact, we just talked about one. Eric and I were talking about one before the show. Arc Ravels doesn't have miniatures. It has...
Well, it has miniatures of yarn, but...
Oh, does it have miniatures of yarn in the deluxe version?
The deluxe version has miniatures of yarn, yeah.
I don't have that version.
Yeah.
I want it now. But I don't care about that. I just want nice little pieces. And I don't even know if I'd call those miniatures. I know they are, but they're more resources than they are miniatures you move around the map. And
deluxe resources.
Pew, pew, pew.
We're nitpicking a little bit here. But yeah,
I think that's the current trend of Kickstarters right now is deluxeification.
Yeah. That's true.
Tasty Minstrel did it for a while where they had a game that you get a deluxeified version.
Yeah.
Almost every Kickstarter has that now. From game trays to screen printed meeples to upgraded resources to a mat you can roll out. And they usually have some mega price where you can buy some uberly cool version of the game. That's the current trend for Kickstarters.
Right.
To be able to buy an up to the nines deluxe version of a game.
Well, and what are miniatures but deluxeified player pieces?
Sure, but I'm always cautious about these questions about miniatures because it always feels like there's a certain bias against a game that has miniatures as opposed to one that doesn't. Like, that game's a toy, but my game is not because it has no miniatures. Like, come on.
I mean, there was a lot of discussion a few years ago about the rising costs of plastic and how that was affecting the costs of various games. And that's often called one of the reasons why HeroScape does not make a return is that it would just cost too much to produce at this point. So is that still an issue, the rising cost of plastic being a problem for minis?
Maybe, but maybe it's because companies are, I don't know. Maybe they're just passing the cost on to the consumers. Because I'll tell you what, you do back one of these mega deluxe version Kickstarter things, they're not cheap.
That's true. And often the minis games have all-in pledges where you're paying a couple $100 or more for all of the stuff.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of small, inexpensive games that you can back on Kickstarter, for sure.
Yeah.
But if you want those really big things, Kickstarter is almost a rich man's game at this point. There is a lot of money can be thrown, especially if you're buying the super deluxe versions of these games. And it's not just miniatures either. There's some that don't have any miniatures in at all, and they're just as deluxe as a game that does. All right, our next question is from Wes, and he says that he and his main gaming partner have been facing an issue that's getting worse over the years. So Wes says he's really good at understanding games. He quickly figures out the strategy, synergies, etc. But his partner struggles with that. So this partner says, don't go easy on me. Don't let me win. But they also don't like getting beat all the time in games. And so Wes does what me and Eric always suggest, and that's try a weird strategy, a niche strategy. But then Wes seems to stumble on something that works. And so they're trying to be positive and supportive, but this person's hard on themselves when the game doesn't go well. And maybe he's wondering that some games won't even get played again because this person's always part of their gaming group, and if they have a disastrous round of a game, they don't want to play it again. So he knows cooperative games can help in this,
Sure.
but he doesn't want to be restricted to that. And there's so many games that none of them seem to table enough for his partner to catch up to him in terms of skill level. So what is some suggestions we have for Wes, other than to be more humble?
Well,
That's a joke.
we've talked about the game I just mentioned, The Search for Planet X, has various starting conditions where you can basically handicap or adjust the starting level of the different players.
Sure, but the partner might then say you're going
easy on me. A game that has more luck, more randomness, drawing of the cards, rolling more dice may work because then strategy isn't going to play as big a role in who eventually wins the game, and it can be more of a flattening factor for the win-loss ratio. That's one way to go too.
With the people, without knowing the people involved, it's always hard to judge these things, right? I get it. Maybe I could say maybe you should play the same game a lot then.
Yeah.
But if the rest of the gaming group doesn't want to do that, that could be problematic. I don't know. It's a tough one. This one might be one we have to toss to the Dice Tower Facebook forums.
A bunch of two-player sessions for a particular game, a training montage with some driving music, and maybe...
it's the eye of the tiger.
Yeah, that's the way to do. We got to do a training montage.
Boom, 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 boom. All right.
Robert says a local game store or game cafe is having an insane Black Friday deal, making me wonder...
This does not tell you where we got the question.
It could have been any Black Friday. Making me wonder if they are liquidating for a pandemic-related closure. So, two-part question. I'm wondering if you have heard how game stores are doing nationwide. And also, I've ordered food from there a few times and bought a couple games from them, but that's all I can do to contribute financially. Is there anything I can do to contribute in other ways? I try to ask them when I have corresponded with them, but they say they're doing fine, which may well be the case.
Well, if you ask them how they're doing and they said they're doing fine and you're kind of like, how can I help more? I guess that's true, because otherwise I think they would have said,
Right,
well,
they
if
would
you
have
bought
said
a few more
something.
games.
Yeah.
I don't know how game stores are doing nationwide. The input I get from, just reading online and things is that some game stores are really struggling. Some game stores got to open, then shut, then open, then shut,
Yeah.
That doesn't help. And of course, it's almost a moot point at this time about the online gaming outlets and the local ones. It's everyone and Amazon.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you can go to Amazon and get a game, and a lot more people don't want to leave their houses and will order and get them.
Yep.
So let's not debate. We're not here to debate whether you want to help your local game store or not, because in this particular case, Robert wants to.
Yes.
As far as I can tell, he wants to help his local game store.
Yes.
Great. So for example, I don't have a local game store, but I have a local business who I help, support financially in various ways. There's no reason to be dance around it. So it's my Key Lime Bakery lady, right?
Yes.
So,
okay.
well, no, but she's a local small business.
Yes. Yes.
And I figured she would sell fewer pies during this time.
Yep.
Here's the problem. I can only eat so much pie.
You can. There's a physical limit.
Let's rephrase that. I should only eat so much pie.
Yes.
And I was like, well, what else can I do? So I started buying pies from my neighbors.
Okay.
Which helped me, have some good relationship with the neighbors.
Yep.
And also helps me with helping her out.
Yep.
So that might be something.
And the neighbors are like, why is one piece missing from this pie?
No, I do not. Come on now. That's like the person who samples the chocolate pieces. No, I'm talking about Robert said he bought some games and he wants to help financially. So maybe you could buy games for other people as gifts.
True.
Now, if that's all, you say, what else can you contribute? If it's not financially, well, in that case, I don't know what else you can do. You can tell people about the store and promote it, although how much of a reach do you have? You can invite, play a game with someone maybe online and say, would you like to game this game for your family? Here's where you can buy it. Things like that.
Well,
Word of mouth's a big deal.
Spreading the word is important, and letting people know that when they're looking for gifts or when they, did you like that game we played, 6 months ago? Then you can find more like it at this particular shop. Instead of going to Amazon, you could check out what they have. A lot of local game stores have moved their inventories online as well and have offered online ordering or phone ordering and curbside pickup as a way to keep going in this current circumstance. I know I did see some data, I think from Gamma, that a lot of stores are facing closure nationwide in this circumstance.
That's true. I did. You're right. I just saw that. And they were saying, 20% they were guessing? And that's Gamma, who I figured would have tried to skew those numbers up a little bit.
Yeah. But I think spreading the word, if you've spent all the money you can right now with this particular business, spreading that news that there are games waiting to be played and purchased to people who would likely go to Amazon, and letting them know that there's a local option for getting those games too, is a way to go.
All right. Finally, we have a question from Nathan. And we talked recently about taking away a seal of approval or excellence. But Nathan wants to know the opposites. Do we add a seal of approval or excellence to a game that did not have one before?
There are a lot of questions about these seals. People are really interested in these seals.
Anyhow, so basically, would we add one to a game that didn't have one before? So Z has his review of Honey Buzz up, and he gave it a seal of approval. But if I didn't play it and I loved it, rated higher, would I give it a seal of excellence? Yes, that just happened actually with a game called Spies and Lies. I love Spies and Lies, so I gave it a seal of excellence. That's not a problem. Again, the goal is to promote games. So I, clearly don't like some games, if you've not ever noticed that.
Never
And I'll say
noticed
so.
that.
But if someone else loves the game, then I'll gladly say it gets a seal of whatever, because a game should be for everybody. Or at least, a game shouldn't be for everybody, but a game should be for somebody.
Yeah.
Now, there are some games that, you're not going to find a single one of our reviewers giving it a good review. That's going to happen to a lot of games, actually. But if there's a difference of opinion, I don't ever want to get it to a point where the curmudgeon is stopping games from getting seals.
Right. So basically it's rounding up.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Rounding up in a big way, but I don't mind it.
Okay.
All right, speaking of a good way, Eric, it's time to go back in our time machine 5 years ago.
Let's do it.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is brought to you by The Op, also known as USA Opoly, at theop.games.
Every year, folks, we go back 5, 10, and 15 years ago, or maybe 22.
We've done 20. Yeah, I think we're into the range where those 20-year-old games are. In fact, I think we're going back 20 years. It's going to be stuff that was when I was getting into designer gaming.
And every time we do this, people say, "Why are you doing this?" Because we want to hear about new games. And I get it. And that's just the way it is. This is not going to happen every episode. Eric and I are flipping these with our alphabet ones.
Which we're going to finish this year.
That's right.
We're going to finish the alphabet in 2021.
Stretch goal.
But that's all future stuff. Right now, we're talking about 5 years ago.
Yeah, but I also think it's interesting to look back at these years to see how games have aged well and done. Because there's always games we'll be super excited about, and then we play them, and we're like, oh, yeah, okay, it got better, it got worse, or whatever. Sometimes we didn't get to play a game in that year.
Exactly.
We finally played it years later.
Yeah, in fact, we should probably go back and look at our 2016 list, which I didn't do before we sat down to record. So some of this might be a surprise.
Well, I will pull that up so that I can just say it as we do each of these.
Well, there you go.
But before we say that, holy cow, was 2016...
There were a lot of good games in 2016.
I may have to. This is one of the best years of gaming. I think it's even almost objectively so. I mean,
there are a lot of
there's a lot of
games. Yeah,
there is a lot of games in the best of here that are just, oh man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this was a tricky one to whittle down. There were a lot of very strong selections here.
Yeah, so there's a couple games that are not on either of our lists, and I feel like we're gonna get yelled at for not having them on. Actually, I'm checking out. As many of them will be mentioned in People's Choice.
Ah,
yeah, Icecool. We just talked about Icecool.
Yeah,
and that didn't even make our lists.
No.
Why is that, Eric? And
well,
it's such a great game.
I think yes. I've only played it once, so it's a lovely game.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and I like the idea that there's so many good games they can't all make the list, but it's also always a little bit frightening to me because we then will not say a game, and someone will say, "Why did that not make your top 10 games?" And I'm like, "Oh, because we're so many good games out that year, sir."
Yep. Do they always say it like that?
I don't know. Let's get
it's like
started.
The Dread Pirate Roberts. Why did it not make your list? Here we go.
Number 10.
We'll kick things off with Yokohama. This is one of the tasty minstrel games that was deluxified, as we were discussing earlier in the show. Yokohama, you're a merchant and you're trying to make money, earn fame, and it has kind of a map of action spaces that you can to work from, and it's a variable setup, really cool mechanisms as this whole thing comes together. And I like the variability of all those different spaces, how they're laid out, how you're going to maneuver your leader and their assistants around to get the most fame possible. Yokohama's a really cool game. My number 10.
This was my number 11, maybe, as far
sure
as
it
you
was.
know.
Sure.
Definitely was one I considered. It's one of my favorite games, but that's how many good games came out this year. Yokohama was not on Eric's list last time. I'm betting he didn't play it in 2016.
That is very true. You're right.
My number 10 game, which was not on my list in 2016 because I didn't play it till 2017, and that is Awkward Guests. The deduction, amazingly fun game that definitively destroys Clue as you try to figure out who murdered the main character, just like Clue, and you use this deck of cards to slowly figure it out. And every case is different because the cards are going to shift around. And you're passing information to each other and talking about it. It is fantastic. I love this game. Awkward Guests.
It is a very cool game. I didn't get a chance to play this until the much more recent Kickstarter release. Was it 2019?
I think it came out in 2019, yes.
Yeah, and I got a copy and have only played it once, but really enjoyed that one play. It just hadn't gotten enough table time to make the list yet. But good choice.
Number 9.
Number 9 is the deck-building, dungeon-delving adventure Clank.
Number 6 for you last time.
Lovely game. I think it's fallen just a little bit because I like Clank in space better. And so this one just doesn't see as much table time, but it's still a solid game. Really, really fun. Number 9, Clank.
I feel another amazing game. Honestly, I believe you will see a lot of 2016 my top 100 this year.
Yeah.
But this one is possibly one of my most played games from 2016. I actually like the new Clank Legacy better. I think I like Clank a little better than Clank in Space just because it's easier. I played it a lot. It's great. It just didn't make my top 10.
I think looking at my list, I think 9 out of the 10 are in my top 100.
All right. So as we do these shows, sometimes people make mistakes. And Eric made a mistake by not catching my mistake.
Yes, that's true.
I had a game on the list twice for some reason at all.
It's an accounting error.
So my number 9 is actually Yokohama.
Hey!
Even though I said it was 11 earlier on. That was, as far as you know, me bluffing.
I convinced you to bump it up a couple notches is what happened.
It is a really fantastic game. I like Yokohama. It's a worker movement game, worker placement, but you're moving them.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It has such a very satisfying feel to it. So, yeah, lots of fun. My number 9, forever, as far as you know.
Yes.
Number 8.
Number 8 is Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition. I think a lovely storytelling game that utilizes an app wonderfully well. This always surprises Tom when I talk about it and how much I enjoy it. But I think despite the Cthulhu mythos, it's not my favorite theme, but the storytelling is just so strong here. Mansions of Madness is so much fun and surprising and exploring, and it's great. Great fun. Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition, my number 8.
This was not on Eric's list.
Nope,
when we
hadn't
first
played it
did
then.
this, but it was my number 5.
Ah.
And you might wonder, why is it no longer on my list?
Why is it no longer on your list, Tom?
It's number 11. That used to be Yokohama. No, again, it's a great game. I really like it. There's so many of these great storytelling games out there now. I think that's the only reason that would knock it down a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more comparison. My number 8 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shadows of the Past, Heroes in a Half Shell.
Turtle Power.
Bum, 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 ba-dum. I really have never been a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan. I thought they were stupid when I was a kid.
Wow.
Although I was only going by the cartoons, I read the comics. The comics are really good. And modern cartoons, there's the really bad, in my opinion, badly animated 3D one that I don't think looks good, but I watched it with my kids and it was really good. Anyway, I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is a game I think that does a really good job at having a nice back and forth between an overlord and the good guys in quick adventures, and everyone's involved, and it really promotes teamwork. I just find them to be super fun.
I never got a chance to play this one, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shadows of the Past.
Well, they actually
was
have
one
redone it. It's confusing to me.
Oh.
They redid it, I think, either in 19 or 20, actually, and I got the 2 boxes of it to see what they were. It's essentially the same game, But instead of having it in one big Kickstarter box, they broke it into 2 smaller boxes. And the problem that I have with this here is that one of the boxes has the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then the other box has I think Shredder's in the other box.
What?
Yeah, so I'm trying to look at the names of the games now. So this was called Shadows of the Past. Yeah, the new ones are called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, City Fall, and Change is Constant. I believe Change is Constant is the name of one of the comic books.
Okay.
And so, yeah, one of them comes with the 4 main turtles, and the other has Shredder and some of the
turtles?
main bad guys in it. I believe Bebop and Rocksteady are in that set.
Oh.
Now, there's enough stuff in both sets. There's enough heroes in the one set to fight against these, and there's enough villains in the other set for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to fight against, but it definitely feels like they are making you buy both.
Where's Krang?
I don't know if he is in the game. He might be, but it does definitely... Hang on, I'm smelling... Expansion. Yep. I don't know if he's in one of these sets or not, actually.
Weird side note. I once took a class from the guy who did the voice for Krang.
Ah.
Guy named Pat Fraley. Fun guy. Anyway.
Number 7.
The Networks is my number 7. This is Gil Hova's game about running a television station. You're drafting stars and programs to put in your various time slots and trying to earn ratings points to become the most successful TV station ever. It's got a real tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, some neat illustrations. It's a good time. The Networks, number 7.
You're consistent. It was your number 7 last time.
Wow. Cool.
By the way, Teenage Mutant Turtles was my number 8 last time, too, so that stayed consistent. All right, my number 7
and number 9
is... No, it's not. Number 9 is Yokohama, so I don't feel like you should be pointing things out like that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
My number 7 is Lorenzo Il Magnifico, which, as I'm looking here, did not make my top 10 back then, but it just really moved up for me. I love this straight-up Euro game. The expansion definitely helps, for sure. But even without the expansion, I really liked it, where you roll 3 dice, and that's the dice everyone has. You make these little machines up, you run them. It's definitely a point salad. It's Euro as all get out, and everyone knows Tom Vassell hates Euros. But I love this one, Lorenzo Il Magnifico.
Number 6.
My number 6 is going to show up on Tom's list in just a little bit, but that's okay. I can wait. My corporation says I'm very patient.
My number 6 was number 9 last time. It's moved up. I love this game. And one of the people I will always pick for this game, if they're available, is Eric Summerer.
Woohoo!
That's Captain Sonar. If I can have Eric Summerer, Z Garcia, and any other 4th human being, I will whoop you.
And anyone you'd like. Well, what position
Well, it
would
needs to
Z
be
play?
someone who's a team player.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to be a team player. You got to want no saboteurs, please.
I'm assuming you want me as the radio operator. What would Z play?
Well, I would let you guys break paper, rock, scissors for the radio operator.
Oh, okay.
Because while you are an excellent radio operator, Z is also, but you would also both be good at being my first mate and essentially telling me what to do.
Okay. Well, we can fight over that.
I will accept either role. But I'm telling you, folks, this is a 4-player, real-time, 8-player, 4 versus 4, real-time battleship game, essentially, where you have 2 subs chasing each other, and it's magnificent. It has given me some of the best gaming moments of my life. It is a game I played 0 times in the year 2020. And I'm hoping maybe in 2021 I could play it near the end of the year. We're hoping. Because it's definitely one you need to play in person. But I love it. Captain Sonar.
This likely is my number 11. I really like this game as well. And
It was your number 5, Eric.
It was. It slipped
How
a
it
little
has
because
fallen.
I haven't had you haven't been around to play it with me.
Oh, I forgive you.
Number 5.
My number 5 is the cooperative deck-building adventure, Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. This remains a favorite because the kids have enjoyed it so much. I have yet to play the new expansion, though. I really need to pick that up. I was at a local gaming store just this past weekend and looking for it, and it wasn't there. I was a little
Oh
bummed.
yeah, you would like that one a lot. I believe.
would have picked it up if it had been there. But it is a great game. It has a progressive difficulty level, so it starts out a very simple game, so almost teaching the basics of deck building, but then becomes a more complex and longer game as you get through more and more adventures. And it's very satisfying to take down Voldemort at the end. Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle number 5.
It was Eric's number 4 last year, which means he now hates it.
I hate it.
Last year, I mean 2016, not last year.
Right.
All right, my number 5 is higher on Eric's list because he picked a faster action than me.
Number 4.
Number 4 is Great Western Trail, the game about driving cattle all the way along a winding path to get them to St. Louis and earn points. I really enjoy this one. The set collection aspect of this to try and score the most points possible when you get to the end. The claiming of spaces to sort of say this action space that's very useful is mine, and I'm really going to get a benefit out of this. It's a thinky one. It has a little bit of an engine building aspect as you get better at doing certain actions, as you get bonuses along the way. It's a really strong game. Number 4, Great Western Trail.
This is Eric's number 10 last time. It has risen.
It's moved up.
My number 4 is higher on Eric's list because, once again, he picked his action before me. Boo.
Number 3.
Number 3 is the Exit series, which debuted in 2016. This is, I think, going to happen as we move through the years and start looking back as we introduce the Escape Game series. But the Exit series has been and continues to be a very strong entry in that genre. It did some really fascinating things with papercraft and surprises, and some of the biggest surprises I've had in escape room games have been with the Exit series. And some things that I now feel like are old hat, or that, you're not going to fool me that way again, Exit or some other escape game, but those were pioneered by the Exit series in 2016. With some very, very strong entries. Exit is a terrific series of games, and it's my number 3.
Now, there's the only reason I didn't put these on is I'm actually just taking these out of my list at this point.
Yeah,
because I feel like it's almost not a game. It's an Exit thing. It's like its own thing. But
yes,
we'll still talk about them on our show, and I think we'll remember 2016 as a critical year that these began.
Yes.
It's a really big deal. Neither one of us, I think, put them on our lists in 2016, but we were definitely playing them because they were so much fun.
Yes, indeed. I don't know if I actually had gotten them to the table by the end of 2016 when we made this first list. It would have been in December of that year, or it may have been that I finally got them to the table early in 2017.
I could have looked it up, but I'm not going to. All right. My number 3 was Eric's number 6. Last year, it was both of our number 2s or in 2016, and that's Terraforming Mars. It dropped a little for me, mostly because another game crept up in the top and knocked it down.
Yep.
But for Eric, it's just a big, huge fall, 2 to 6. So we can talk about
huge.
Terraforming Mars, the game that constantly is fun. In fact, I just played it with the expansion Prelude on the app. It's a really good app, folks.
Cool. I haven't tried the app yet.
I think you would like it.
Yeah.
I think we should play it sometime.
We should. That would be fun. I enjoy Terraforming Mars is a great game. Another engine builder, building that tableau and getting synergies of the cards that you've acquired and having to figure out how to pay for them. It's another really thinky, difficult game to get. You have all this stuff you want to do, but you have to sort of trigger them in the proper order. And that's a tricky challenge. I really enjoy it. My number 6, Tom's number 3, Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic, fun game that I'm constantly finding new and fun ways to play.
Number 2.
Number 2 is Tom's number 5, and that is the cooperative game from Riot, Mechs vs. Minions, a deliciously produced game. It's almost unfair to talk about how well produced it is because it's a giant video game company that made this like labor of love cooperative board game. It is a programming game where you have 6 registers and you're playing cards onto these. You have a drafting round where you very quickly have to divvy up who gets what cards. The cards come in suits, so like a particular yellow action can upgrade an existing yellow action that you have out on the board already, making it more powerful. But that might not be the most useful thing. Do you stack your cards to make them super powerful, or do you spread them out so you can do more actions on a turn, turning and moving and shooting and all sorts of stuff, and trying to take out bad guys and get through scenarios? It is wonderful fun. And my kids and I have had a lot of fun working our way through these missions and working together. It's a terrific cooperative game, Mechs versus Minions.
Yeah, this one I like a lot. Just fantastic. It was my number. What number was it for me last time? It was my number 6. It was not in Eric's list at all.
It really.
So you must have played it later.
It must. I think it was. I think I got the second wave of Mechs versus Minions, which would have been probably after 2016.
Yeah, I like cooperative games in general. Speed cooperative games, or working together, I guess not speed, but to fight off a big swarm of enemies is a really huge thing I like, which we'll talk about very briefly. My number 2 is Project Elite, because you're fighting off a big swarm of enemies.
Oh, that's something you like, I think.
I heard that. This was actually my number 1 last time. Another game has snuck into its spot. But that's the only reason all my games got knocked down a level. Project Elite is pretty bad. Was pretty badly produced in 2016, but this year, Command came out with a very nice version of it, so you can all get it. Speed, rolling dice as fast as you can, blowing aliens away as they come storming towards you. It's so much fun. There's no way there's an alpha gamer in this one. And you feel like you've done something. Even if you lose, you feel like you killed, a pile of aliens you're standing on top of. And as they kill you, you're like, at least the people on the station got out alive. I don't know. I love it. Okay. Project Elite.
Cool.
And finally, number 1.
So I'm really wondering what my number 1 was, because I don't think I got to play Scythe, which is my number 1, back in 2016 either. I think I played that later on in 2017. But it has risen to the top of the list because it's such a solid game.
Eric, it was your number 1.
It was my number 1. I did get a chance to play it.
And it didn't even make my list because I thought it was good but not great. But it's moved up to my number 4.
See, this is how our numbers have, or our memories have become hazy. I love this game. It is an engine builder with cool upgradable actions. You got this board, and everybody's board's a little different and has the actions in different orders, and you have a particular faction that also has powers, and the mixing of those boards and the factions, and then resource gathering and economy and efficiency. It's so delicious and wonderfully produced. Scythe, number 1. Both times.
Yeah, great game. Really like it. A lot of fun. Highly recommend it. It's really stood the test of time, in my opinion. My number 1, though, I mentioned earlier in this episode, my current favorite Uwe Rosenberg game, A Feast for Odin. It's so interesting because there are so many of these polyomino games out there now, and A Feast for Odin is unlike the rest by a mile. You're doing this worker placement game to trade for these different pieces that you can get and put in this grid. But wow, it works so well on so many different levels. I love this game. It is meaty. It may be his most complex game, actually.
Yeah, probably. All those actions. You got that huge menu with
Oren Labora,
4
Caverna,
columns.
Maybe? Yeah, but it's so good.
Yeah.
It's such a great game. I love it. It was my number 7 in 2016, but it has moved up to my number 1 spot.
Nice. I believe.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It's one of my favorite Uwe Rosenberg games.
Okay. So. Yeah. I thought that was a different game in your number 1 Uwe Rosenberg slot. Anyway, you taught me this, if I recall correctly, and it's a great selection. I found it a little overwhelming with all of those actions.
Didn't we play all of them back to back, or we played this, Le Havre, and Caverna, or I played all 3 back to back?
You did at a Dice Tower retreat. You decided to play one of let's just play as many Rosenberg games as we can. But this we played at the Portal in Connecticut. You guys flew up to Connecticut, and I got to play A Feast for Odin because you had it with you.
I was just thinking about that.
I was actually just in that store this past weekend.
All right, fine. All right, let's see what the people said. Now, again, it is unbelievable how good of a year it is that many of these games that the people picked didn't make our top 10s.
Yeah.
Like number 20, Aeon's End, or is it Eon's End?
I think it's Eon, but I've heard the publishers say Aeon, so I think it should be Eon.
Aeon's End. All right, number 19, Mystic Vale.
Yeah.
This card crafting game. It's a great game. And it's only 19 for the people. 18, Captain Sonar. 17, the Spiel des Jahres winner, Imhotep, which I really like. 16, Pandemic Iberia.
A great version of Pandemic.
One of the highest rated Pandemic versions. Number 15, Harry Potter cooperative deck building game. 14, Lorenzo Il Magnifico. 13, Mechs vs. Minions. And 12, a game I'm really sad that didn't make my top 10 because it's such a great game, and that's Role Player. Such an amazing year. Number 11, Sushi Go Party, which technically didn't come out that year, but that was a nice version of Sushi Go. So, 10, A Feast for Odin. 9, Arkham Horror card game.
Okay.
Which I'm sure some people out there are screaming we didn't put on our list because I know some people love it.
It was a fun experience the time I got to play it, but it's just not for me.
Number 8, Mansions of Madness, second edition. Number 7, another one people are yelling at us for not putting on our list, Star Wars Rebellion. That definitive Star Wars experience, that was actually on my list in 2016. It just got knocked off, but again, so many great games. Number 6, and this is very high for an abstract strategy game, Santorini. Another one I considered. It's such a great game. I did not consider this next one. Number 5, King Domino.
It's fine. It works.
It's okay.
Yeah.
For me. But this one won a Spiel des Jahres too. I guess they won them in different years, maybe?
Yeah, it must have been.
I should do some research on that to see how many years have multiple Spiel des Jahres winners in them.
Right. Well, often, like in the U.S., we'll get a German title a year later.
Yeah, but they also don't do it by year. So it's
Right.
possible that a game that comes out in spring wins that year, and the game that comes out in fall wins the following year.
True.
Number 4, Great Western Trail. This was the year... Okay, he's not going to listen to this show anyway. So, Bonacor, this was Bonacor's year.
It was Bonacor's year.
Because at Essen, he had
both.
Great Western Trail and Terraforming Mars, and he was just like almost chuckling with glee.
Yep.
So 4 is Great Western Trail. 3, Clank. 2, Scythe. And Terraforming Mars is number 1.
Sure, that makes sense. What ones were on my list in 2016 that didn't make it this time?
So let's see what got knocked off. So let's see. 1s and 2s. So your number 3 missed out. Both of our number 3s are off the list. Mine was Codex Card Time Strategy, which I still really like and just missed my top 10.
Okay.
Yours was Potion Explosion.
That's weird because that didn't show up when I did the search. So
maybe they changed the date of that?
Yeah, well, when we originally do these lists, it could very well be that Potion Explosion was a late 2015 game.
It's ranked as a 2015 game,
Yes.
that's why.
And so I didn't get to see the North American version until early 2016.
My number 4 is Cry Havoc, which I still like a lot, but it has dipped a bit. Again, with so many great games out there. Your number 8 was Dream Home.
Okay. Yep. An okay game, and which I've enjoyed. But yeah, not quite top 10 anymore.
I'm having a hard time pronouncing your number 9, but it's a 2-player game from Emperor S4. It's
Hanami Koji.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Hanami Koji. I like that one.
Yeah, so there was a lot of good games, and the People's Choice in 2016 was Scythe, Terraforming Mars, Mechs vs. Minions, Rebellion, Star Wars Rebellion, Mansions of Madness, Feast for Odin, Quadropolis.
That fell.
It's a good game. Yeah, it did, but I still like it, though. It's a fun game. Great Western Trail, Cry Havoc, and Codenames Pictures. I also want to do a quick shout out to Islebound because I think that's one of Ryan Lockett's games that does not get a lot of buzz, and When I Dream is a great party game.
Yeah, Islebound is one of the few Ryan Lockett games I haven't played.
What a year! I'm not kidding. I
Oh,
think 2016 may
strong
be
stuff.
the best year ever. I'm gonna have to go. We'll do our top 10 years at some point, but this is definitely one that's up there because honestly, many of the games that came out in 2016 are still being played today. Like on the People's Choice, Terraforming Mars, Scythe, Clank, and Great Western Trail, all 4 of those I know are still getting played.
Yeah. Yeah.
And King Domino, Santorini, Star Wars Rebellion, Mansions of Madness, Arkham Horror card game, Feast for Odin. Yeah, those are all being played still.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. So, what a good year.
Congratulations to everyone from that year.
Congratulations to the person who invented 2016. Do you think in 2025, Eric? In 2025, we're going to open up the thing and be like, folks, normally the Dice Tower has family-friendly language, but we have some choice words for the year 2020.
Actually, no, I actually expect that the 2020 list will be very different because, in theory, we'll be able to filter through some of the things that we couldn't get to the table in 2020.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to get a lot more of those titles played. I hope.
Well, when there's hope. All right, folks, don't forget about our Kickstarter. I know I try not to talk about fundraising all year if possible, but we do talk about it in January. We have some really cool ideas, some new shows we're going to do, and there's some really cool things. We have a deck of playing cards, folks, which is amazing looking.
Oh, I want that. Usually, I beg you for some of the promos when I see you at a convention. But we haven't had those this year, and so I'm having promo withdrawal, Tom. But seeing the pictures of the deck of cards is really exciting.
I'll get you the promos, probably.
Maybe.
Alrighty, folks. Thanks so much for listening to the Dice Tower. We'll be back. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to the Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 692, was recorded on January 10th, 2021. Tom, Mandy, and Suzanne join you next week, and in 2 weeks, wonder whence went our top 10 games that start with W? Well, we'll be winding them up then. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has become more than you can handle, find out how we can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with assistance from Rob Searing, Mike DeLisio, and Roy Kennedy. Buzzing sounds from the Big Apple brought to you by New York Kazoo. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and you can get the latest on everything Dice Tower at dicetower.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at tom@dicetower.com or eric@dicetower.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower network, including Dukes of Dice, Four Corners of the Board, Board Gamers Anonymous, Boards and Swords, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, The Geek All-Stars, The Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, and Dice Tower Tonight. Find your next favorite at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. So one of the things that we've had on the Kickstarter for many years is me doing your voicemail message. But Tom decided that maybe people didn't want to have my voice on the voicemail message, and so he's opened it up to everyone. And not that it's a contest. It's not a contest, but I'd just like to say that if you do choose that as an option, that I would be happy to do your voicemail message, and I would really, I'd be happy if I got more votes than Tom.
Fine.
Just saying. It's not a contest, though. It's not a popularity contest. I'm just saying. Just saying.